Welcome to the Zambian Jewels Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Zambian gemstones, the people, stories, and places that keep the industry going. We are the hosts. My name is Samba Yonga. I do comms, culture, and promote everything authentically Zambian.
And I am Rashmi Sharma, a gemmologist and jeweler, trying to put Zambian gemstones on the global gemstone landscape. Join us in conversation.
That a lot of Zambians don't know about them.
That's right.
Which brings us to the conversation of the why. Like, most people must be thinking, why do we need a podcast about Zambian gemstones?
Yes.
I know my why, and I know you have your why. But my why was a couple of years ago, I think 2019 now. We were both on the same TEDx talk here in Lusaka. And you know, when we go through those grueling sessions of practice, that it's not the first time I met you, but it's the first time that we really connected.
Yes.
And when you talked about the gemstones, I was like, wait, why isn't this common knowledge?
Yes.
Because if we have so many gemstones that are so valuable, that can contribute to Zambia's economy, it doesn't make sense. We need to know more about this. So over the last couple of years, we've had conversations about this. But what's your why?
So why I did the TED Talk, or why we
Both.
need to... Okay, so the reason I did the TED Talk was so that people would understand and become aware of what Zambia possesses under its ground. And we possess an immense amount of wealth in terms of gemstones and minerals and gold and copper. And, you know, the developed world seems to know this. And we've been exporting Zambian gemstones slowly out of Zambia, and they end up in other lands, and we create jobs in other lands where they cut and polish and they value add everywhere else. And it should actually be done right over here. And so this is why I actually did the TED Talk, so that people would become aware of, when they're farming in their father's land, wherever it may be, north, south, east, west, all our 9 or 10 provinces. How many do we have? 9 or 10? 10, yes. Everywhere you go, we'll find a gemstone. You'll hit something shiny. And then you've just got to make it into a jewel, from a rock to a jewel. And that's called value addition. And that's exponential value addition, from something that's raw that you throw away thinking it's just a rock. Meanwhile, if you just open up that raw rock and you polish facets into it, it can actually shine brilliantly. And then there's a market for it. I mean, the jewelry industry globally, depending on which website you go visit, is either between $250 billion to $350 billion.
You know, when you say numbers like that, I'm just like,
How many zeros are there?
Exactly. I can't imagine and fathom, like, what are you saying?
How
Like,
many zeros
is this something that we could practically actually be involved in?
Absolutely, because, I mean, this is the general jewelry. You know, the Asians have been involved in jewelry manufacture for thousands of years. Our gods and goddesses are bejeweled, you know, from head to toe. And they've always had some colored gemstones in there. Not all of them came from Africa at that time. You know, India had its own gemstones, and other parts of the world have their own gemstones. But I think historically, since Zambia came to be, maybe even 1964, we've had the emeralds. And even 300 years from now, I mean, we've had belts with garnets visible that are sitting in some museum in Sweden or in Europe. And so even up to 300 years ago, there was some history on Zambian gemstones, you know, where our waist belts had gemstone beads, our necklaces had gemstones, but weren't faceted, maybe just a little bit polished, but they had color.
And I remember having a conversation with somebody who was saying that the gemstones used to just be found on the surface of the ground. Like, people would just pick them up. And I found that really fascinating.
That's when you know you've got to start digging deeper and then bring them out and start learning how to cut and polish them. And so, you know, the lapidary that is based in the Copper Belt will show you the basics on how to cut and polish. And then hopefully we will set up a jewelry manufacturing and another lapidary as Jewel of Africa Foundation. Let's see where that goes. But the idea is that if we have more gemstones discovered in Zambia than any other country has discovered, then we should be able to value add locally and create thousands of jobs on cutting and polishing, and not just in Lusaka. In every single province that where the gems come from, there should be a cutting center.
I think that's why I'm really excited about having this conversation, right? It's not just about the gemstones, but it's the industry and how that industry can contribute to the economy, and how the people can actually get involved. So if people ask why, this is why.
Yes.
You know, we want to spread the information, we want to talk about it, we
Yes.
want to find solutions,
Yes.
because after all, the solutions start with us. So maybe one of the key things to talk about would be, what are the key gemstones in Zambia?
Okay. We've got so many, but let's start with the first 5 or 6, which is the emerald. And I'm
Yeah.
going to point to the map of Zambia, which is on the wall behind me. And for those who are listening and not watching, it's a map of Zambia, and the Copperbelt province has the emerald. Now, the map is actually made out of copper. And there's a reason why it's made out of copper is because Zambia's economy is largely based, the well-being of its economy is largely based on the value of copper.
Yeah.
And within the first minute or so I mentioned in my TED Talk is that if copper is sold at $8,000 a ton or $6,000 a ton back in 2019, the value of a top quality 90% emerald at 1 carat is the same, between 6,000 and 8,000 of a 98
Wow.
percentile. Now,
Incredible.
a 98 percentile is a very crucial figure because Zambian emeralds can actually be that excellent. You can't say 100% because it'd be fake. Emeralds always have to have inclusions. But other countries that have emeralds, they stop valuing at 90%. There's nothing beyond 95% because they add oils and resins, and we don't have to do that because ours are colored by chromium and they have iron, so they're hard enough and the luster is more adamantine. And if you cut them to perfection, there's total internal reflection. So they're brilliant emeralds. And so emerald is the first one because the value of an emerald is so high. Over the last 8 years, it has more than doubled for the above 95 percentile.
Right. I mean, we
Yeah.
see them all over the red carpet and
Yes.
people wearing them. And it's hard to compute, like, okay, so a Zambian emerald is on the neck of a famous artist or a famous musician or
That's right,
actor.
yes.
What does that actually mean? So those are some of the questions that we want to get into. But yes, carry on.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about some of the celebrities. If I can think of, Angelina Jolie, she had a beautiful pair of emeralds. I think they were almost 100 carats, 50-50 per ear, or even more than that. And
Wow.
I made a pair.
So what 50 carat, just like explain that so that we understand what that actually means.
So
You talked
a
about 1
carat
carat
is a
being,
fifth of a gram. So when I say the value of a carat of an emerald is, 1/5, 0.02 grams is the same value as a ton of copper. Now,
that's
this is how you need to envision
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
To think about.
And we are producing over 60% of the global emerald production. So how many carats is that?
Exactly.
Right? How many 6,000 times, how many millions of carats is that? And so there's a lot of potential in the Zambian emerald industry. And so I think the government is being a little proactive with that and trying to control it and figure out how more Zambians can get involved in Zambian mining. And this is the key is mining. If we're not going to be mining, then all the gemstones are going to leave the country. And we need to try and keep a portion of that locally. If we keep a portion of it locally, we add value locally, and we see those figures climbing.
Zambia has so much character, and it just seems natural that this should be part of our brand as well. And that's something else that we want to
This
talk
is gem
about. Yeah?
tourism. This is
Yeah.
what we need to talk about on a
Yeah.
different episode. I can talk about it right now. But, when people come to Zambia, they come to Zambia for the Victoria Falls and the wildlife, but they need to come here for the gemstones as well. Because I still see a lot of people who are like, oh my God, you have emeralds in Zambia? And right now, with the 2 big mines, they're doing a lot of publicity. So they're putting Zambian emeralds on the global map. And people are understanding that, even though they think they're from India because they're cut and polished in India, even the Indians are now asking me, can we buy the emeralds from you directly? Of course you can. Because we cut and polish them right here. And a lot of people assume that we buy them back and they're cut in India. No, we cut them right here at Jewel of Africa.
So there can be industries within industries, sector within sector.
There's a whole supporting industry that will come by.
Absolutely.
I mean,
That will go with
our
that.
polishing equipment, our saw blades, Everything can be
Absolutely.
created right here, but yet we have to import everything.
And one of the things we'll be doing in this podcast, we have a segment where we have insights from different voices in the industry, and they'll be letting us know their experiences, their successes, and challenges. So I'm really excited about that segment, and your brother will be running with that. So we'll
That's
hear
right.
his voice as
It's
well.
Dr. Rashmi Sharma coming up.
Yeah, so that would be good. But I think now we can talk about each specific gemstone, because I think I want to get a little deeper into that. And I want us to start with the most obvious one, the most associated with Zambia, which is the emerald.
Right.
Yeah.
I think emerald and amethyst.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a time it was both of them, and amethyst because it doesn't fetch as high a value as a price as emerald does, and emerald is number 2 in the hierarchy of value of gemstones globally. So you've got the ruby at number 1 and emerald number 2, and then the rest of them flow. I mean, the diamond industry may disagree with me, but the truth is that the emerald and the ruby is far rarer than any other. Yeah, and it represents love and fertility. And in the East, which hosts over 2 billion people, they dictate which colors are in demand. So, and because they're so popular and such high demand, there is room for synthetics. Right. So wherever
So can
you
you
find the
explain what a
real,
synthetic
yeah.
is,
So
just for those who...
right, a synthetic is a man-made gemstone. So right now we hear about lab-grown diamonds. Emeralds and rubies have always been lab-grown. Not always, but at least for the last 100 years that I know. In fact, we've got textbooks written on the properties and their inclusions that are synthetic. So a synthetic is different from a simulant. A simulant is a copycat. So you can have other gemstones or even pieces of glass that look like the gemstone. But a synthetic has the same properties as the real gemstone. So it's very difficult to say whether it's the real thing or not, which is why I said 100% quality for an emerald would be the fake synthetic.
Right.
So it would have the same refractive index, which is the angle at which light bends when it... Oh, but by the way, Zambian emeralds have a higher refractive index than other gemstones because of its iron content. So it's 1.59 instead of 1.57. But those of you who understand refractive index will know what I'm talking about.
And those who don't?
Those who don't, it's just that light bends at a slightly different angle.
Which makes it sparkle more, or
it
does
makes
make
it sparkle more. The luster that comes off of it is nice. I mean, I don't want to diss any other emerald. It's not right to do that.
Not naming any countries.
Yes, but Zambian emeralds have a special property, especially if you don't dull it out with the oils that make it a little bit greasy, and if you wipe them, and if you get the angles correct. So if you follow your critical angles that require the refractive index, by the way, you will get total internal reflection, and all the light that goes in from the top comes back out. And this is how you see all the fires and the reflection that's happening. And this is what's mesmerizing. And those, just the sparkles are brilliant. I mean, I say that they wink to their owner to say, buy me.
I like that.
Yeah.
I know now emeralds have been in the market as one of the most popular gemstones globally. But in Zambia, when did we actually start? Do you know, like, when did we start manufacturing? And
when did we start digging out the emeralds? Probably even before independence. Yeah, we've had emeralds for a long time.
Yeah.
They've just been owned by foreign entities. So that's why they haven't been in the market per se.
Right.
But there's always a few that trickle out from the mines, and then people get to see just the very few. I mean, we can't fulfill B2B orders because if for example, Macy's in the US or
B2B, business to business.
yes,
You mean?
or Costco, which is the largest jewelry seller in the States, if they give me an order and they would want calibrated pieces of jewelry, they must look 1,000 pieces must look exactly the same. We can't do that because we don't have enough mines that leave enough of the gems here.
Right.
And so we would need to cut them perfectly, and they would have to match each other in color and in size and in properties. And that's the hard part. So we need the people who would purchase from us in order to start mining. We need the guarantees, the off-takers, to give us the money, then we start mining, and then we start cutting, and then we start producing the jewelry for them. We don't have that yet because we're not mining. That's where the bottleneck is.
So to remove the bottleneck, we need to start doing the mining.
That's it.
I think another interesting conversation is also the market,
Yes.
because we're talking about high grade and low grade emerald.
Yes.
And low grade emerald could be accessible to more people, even in the country, because when we think of high
Absolutely.
grade, we're
Yes.
talking about actors and actresses.
Yes.
But there's the beading and there's the low grade.
Yes.
And that should be a concentration, a place where we're looking at as well to include in the market. Maybe you could talk a little about that as well.
Well, people think emeralds, it's expensive. I can't afford it. That's not true. Wear a bead. It's $50 a carat, maybe $30 a carat if you can get a good deal. There can be just the rough rocks, and figure out a design and say, I'm wearing a proudly Zambian emerald. And this is where a culture starts developing around Zambian gemstones with your jewelry. And this is what we lack. We lack a culture based on gemstones and jewelry. People purchase their wedding ring, and that's it. And some children who are lucky or from a wealthier background may get studs or earrings that I seem to be making, and baby bangles. But the majority of the Zambians I see is only when they're ready for that marriage or that proposal. And so, listen, not all gemstones are valuable or that expensive. You can get good deals locally, and you can cut and polish them right here. You can bring me the rough, and I'll point you in the right direction of where you can cut it, and then wear it.
So that's something we should be talking about, because I think that's key. If we're talking about building a Zambian market, it should start with us. It should start with us understanding that we can have a culture of gemstones and we can partake in it, not only at the industry level, but also at the consumer level, and also wearing it as a badge of honor.
Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned in my TED Talk, for those of you, please do listen to the talk, because it's an initial conversation that if you listen to my podcast, the TED Talk is a good introduction. And I talk about the Colombians who are fiercely protective over their emeralds, because the girl child is born and she gets an emerald, or even a boy child probably. Their wedding ceremonies, all their blessing ceremonies include emeralds. And this is why emeralds are Colombian. When we get royalties and people walking into Zambia, they're not aware that we have emeralds. They're not even aware. They think we have tanzanite because the Tanzanian government and everybody who mines tanzanite markets it so well.
I mean, I've been in your office many, many times, and we've had these conversations in different ways many times over, but I feel like we can talk forever. This being the first episode, I think it's key that we laid the foundation of what we want to talk about, why this is important. But I think for me, the key takeaways, because I'm learning all the time, every time we have a conversation, is the marketing around it, investment in the ecosystem of the industry, but also being brand carriers as Zambians.
Yes.
How do we carry the story of Zambian gemstones?
So I think it starts from the very top, the ambassadors, the people who are in position of power and influence. Once they understand or appreciate the value of the gemstones that we carry, and they start talking about them and marketing, when they advertise Zambia, they should speak about the Zambian gemstones and the plethora of our gemstones. And if emeralds is trending at the moment, ride on that, right? Because, for example, the Tanzanian government, it really does ride on tanzanite.
Yeah.
That people come to Zambia thinking we have tanzanite because it's Africa.
Yeah.
So Tanzania is not the only place that could have tanzanite. Surely Zambia should have it also. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, you need the Kilimanjaro to create the tanzanite, which we don't have. And tanzanite has completely different properties that cannot be made in Zambia. But they do a fantastic job. So, I have royalties and people coming to my office. They say, we're here to purchase tanzanite. And I think, but why? Why did you think?
Country.
Yes. When you go there, have something to purchase. But when you're here, let me tell you what we have.
Right.
Sit you down. And then I tell them about the emeralds, and they say, well, emeralds are Colombian. And I say, yes, they're also Colombian. They're also Afghanistani. They're also Ethiopian. But Zambian emeralds have very unique properties that make them shinier, harder. That means you can wear them more often. and they're less breakable if you cut them correctly, if the inclusions are in the correct places. And so it definitely comes in from the Zambian perspective. Zambians need to understand what they have. They need to appreciate what they have and talk about it. We've got embassies all over the world. Why is it that I only go to the US and speak about Zambian gemstones? It's because of the AGOA Treaty. Meanwhile, if we hopped onto the ATA Carnet Treaty, which is, it will take us to 80 different countries. And then I can go and exhibit and talk about Zambian gemstones in 79 countries because one of them is already the USA.
Great. And that speaks to the ecosystem. Like
That's
how
right.
To, yeah.
Yes. So if we're not able to exhibit, how does the world get to know? And if our people don't speak about it, how is everyone else going to know? Every ambassador should wear a piece of Zambian gemstones, of a gemstone, or a piece of jewelry, or
Fabulous.
Historical piece.
Fabulous. Yes.
We've got designs that we have made that represent Zambian culture. Wear that. Speak about that. Have a talking point when you're representing Zambia.
Absolutely. And I think that's why the two segments I'm excited about is the one with Raj, which is now relevant because he'll go into the industry. We'll listen to industry voices, what their experiences have been. And I think it's important because we can learn from them and they can share their experiences. Some of them have been in the industry even longer than you have.
Yes, that's right.
And that would be great. But the other segment is where we have guests come through. I think when we were thinking about the list of people to select, we were very much in line with wanting them to be brand carriers and people from all walks of life. Because I think the central part of our discussion is very much focusing on gemstones are very Zambian. They're from our soil. The Zambian people have interacted with them from 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And how can we revive that? How can we bring that back? So I think all the people that we've selected who are on the list represent the different parts of Zambia that we want to reintroduce to gemstones. So for me, that is an important and exciting part.
Yes, for me also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we for the emerald section, we've picked Mukwandi Chibesekundos from a banking background, and I know when she wears the emeralds, she'll speak about them to the world because she's well traveled as well. So it's part of gem tourism with with her as a banker, and we can take discussions deeper into banking. But there are other visitors or guests who will come on board, and they will represent different walks of life, like you've mentioned, and we will have different colored stones that will best reflect their personalities.
Very exciting. Very exciting. And now join us for the industry segment with Raj Sharma and Joseph Kabuswe Mwansa.
Good day, and welcome to the Zambian Jewels Podcast. My name is Raj Sharma. I'm the Managing Director of Jewel of Africa, and I welcome you today, Mr. Joseph Mwansa Kabuswe, the President of the Federation of Small-Scale Miners. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Joe, our purpose today is to talk about the gemstone industry, which collectively we call the Jewels of Zambia, as well as highlight the people involved in the industry and their journey from inception to where they are now. You have been a very important player in the industry. In as far as I can remember, I started in the industry 32 years ago, and I think we were about the same time. Would you tell our listeners today how you started and what you're involved in?
We had a mine in Kitwe, emerald area, where my brother was doing emerald mining. He had emerald mining and he was doing some mining in Kitwe. Then after some time, he passed away. It's from there I began to involve myself in this sector or industry either. I think if I can recall very well, I began to involve myself very much from as far as 1986. That's when I became so serious in the areas of gemstone industry or sector. It's from that point that I began to develop my skill and understanding of this industry.
As president of the Federation of Small Scale Miners, would you tell us what your organization does and how your role is instrumental in changing the landscape in the gemstone industry in Zambia?
We are an umbrella body. We have about 16 associations that are affiliated to us. This time I would say about 18. These associations affiliated to Federation of Small Scale Miners, they help us to manage the miners and to speak on behalf of mine. So the Federation of Small Scale Miners is a mouthpiece which speak on behalf of small scale miners and help the small scale miners and Artisanal as well, together with cooperatives, to manage their mines in the right way.
I'm very glad you've talked about small scale miners as well as artisanal miners. Having come in the past 32 years from where we have, as what would be termed today as illegal miners, to coming to get artisanal licenses, how important do you see the distinction today of a small-scale miner or an artisanal miner, or the real genesis of gemstone mining in this country, which is the herder or hunter in our rural areas who stumbles across gemstones during his everyday life? How important do you see the involvement of these three separate entities is to the growth of industry in this country?
In the first place, illegal miners have not started now. Illegal miners started as far as the time of Kaunda. I think if you can recall very well, there was a time in 1984, former President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda had to engage the army just to clear illegal miners because they wanted to finish the illegal miners. But that didn't work because they didn't understand who are illegal miners. Even now, today, I think the terms we use as illegal miners or illegal mining, it is something that has been misunderstood because we don't know exactly who are illegal miners. If I was to talk about illegal miners, I would say all of us, we are potential illegal miners.
I see the importance of that distinction.
Yes. How do we become illegal miners? When you find a stone in your farm, the moment you pick it up from the ground, automatically that particular time you become an illegal miner.
Absolutely. I mean, as Jewel of Africa, we often talk about the wealth that this country has, and it's an idiom I use quite often. And when I say, if you dig deep enough anywhere in this country, this country is so blessed that you dig deep enough, you have a high likelihood of finding some gemstone or the other. So I see the importance you attach to the terminology of illegal mining. These are all probably artisanal miners or small-scale miners in the making.
Yeah, and when you look at the people who discovered some minerals, are not these on of exploration licenses. The people who discover the minerals are so-called illegal miners. They are the one who discover the minerals, then later on they are kicked out from the mining area, and the owners of this exploration would now come to the Ministry of Mines to formalize. But when you look at the actual key player who have helped our industry to discover the minerals, they are illegal miners. And the Ministry of Mines of late have been talking about formalizing the sector so that we can bring the so-called illegal miners to begin to have some licenses. But again, there are some challenges. It will take some time because there are ZEMA issues. which some of the illegal miners, they cannot manage to afford to pay for Zema, which the whole process is almost about 100,000 kwacha. Now you are talking about somebody who cannot even afford to buy a bag of fertilizer, not even to afford to buy a generator to use in their mines. They are failing to do that. Now, how do you expect them to get the license and be formalized? I think that's where the problem is. So if we were to formalize the sector, we should first begin with Zema issues. And when I talk about Zema, it's not the workers and the directors which are a problem or an institution. It's a Zema policy which has some faults. If they can simplify the Zema policies and reduce the amount, they detach those consultants, then I think we can believe 100% that we shall formalize the sector.
So what advice would you have to a potential artisanal miner or a small-scale miner who currently is termed an illegal miner, who comes across a gemstone in their backyard? How can they safeguard that intellectual property that they have found, and how can they formalize this? Have you any advice to offer such people?
We always have the advice to advise our people, but when the policy that is in place is hostile, it's quite difficult for us to advise. How do we advise them when we know that no matter how they try, they cannot get the licenses? Until at a time that the policy is being simplified to suit people on the ground, then it's from there we can see tangible results. And you are going to see a lot of people coming to sell the love stones. You are a jeweler, you change them to finished product, because by then many people will have licenses and many people begin to work. But there is the reason why we have too many illegal miners, sometimes some of the stones are smuggled out, is because these people, they cannot afford to get the license. The process is too tough for them to get the license. So for us to advise, unless the policy first is being tackled and being changed, now it depends the policymaker. The policymakers, they have to understand what is on the ground. They should understand their people. Once they understand their people, then they'll bring a policy that can suit the artisanal miners. It's from that point that you formalize the sector and the government will begin to see the profit that they'll be making, because almost everyone will comply. And that's what I think I see in our sector.
And Joe, you in your own right, you've been mining yourself. Would you tell us, aside from all the international shows you attend and market your products, please tell us what you're mining, where you're mining, and the challenges you faced in your own mining journey.
At the moment, I'm mining citrine in Mansa, and I have also some garnets mine in Irundazi, and one aquamarine mine. And of course, I have 2 mines, Tomarine and the aquamarine in Malawi.
That's a lot of mines.
Yeah, you see.
Are they all operating?
They used to operate, but because of lack of, finances, 3, they are not in operation, but 1 in Mansa, it is in operation. We are mining, and we are trying to do well.
And these are all good sites?
Very good site.
Have you thought of looking for partners, for finance?
At the moment, no, but maybe in future, because I still believe that I can still manage, because you have to also believe that you can manage your mines and become one of the best local investor. That is my belief. I believe that I can manage. Just like I'm managing in Mansa very well. And now they have given us Zema decision letters in garnet mines. We're waiting for that. we couldn't mine because being a president of Federation of Small Scale Miners, you have to be careful. So I could not mine because I was waiting for decision letters.
And you didn't want to be termed an illegal miner?
No. I didn't want to be used as an example.
Right.
So now that I have decision letters, very soon, anytime, we'll begin to mine our garnets as well.
Okay. And where do you see this gemstone industry going in the next 5 years? It's been a long enough journey already, Joe. We've been at it, you and I, for over 30 years. We can't do this forever. Other people need to take over. And we need to somehow describe a bright future, not a grim one, for the generations that are following us.
I would say that I see this sector as a sector which has potential to grow from the level where it is to another level, because we have almost everything in Zambia. We have very good mines. Some of the mines have not been discovered, and some of the mines have been abandoned. If you remember those days in the 80s to, from 80s to 90s, I think Mr. Amon can remember very well, there were a lot of high quality aquamarines. We used to see beautiful aquamarines. Those days, who were mining, they are the same called illegal miners, because the formula and the system of getting the license, it was so easy. So we expected this industry by now to grow to a level where we can compete with other nations. You can see even when it comes to exporting, we have to go through many departments for you just to come to get an export permit to export your goods. The process, it takes long. It means it delays the growth of economy. And you have seen that police also are involved. These are people who are not even expert. Why bring the police in a sector? You know exactly that they are not an expert. So it's like we are just congesting our sector and the process of, exporting the minerals. And exporting the minerals and mining, they are grouped together. We can't separate them. But when I look at where we are, first we have to also work on the process of, when it comes to exporting the minerals. When you want to export your goods or your minerals or gemstone, it should just take 1 day. And once we work on that, then it will come to mining, because mining sector in Zambia, it has a very great potential, and I would like to believe that we have almost every minerals that we need as a country to have.
This is a very great point. I mean, you've highlighted now for the second time that this country has a lot of gemstone wealth, and that in the past, in the 80s and 90s, we used to produce beautiful aquamarine coming out of Lundazi, Petauke, Katete, Mukushi Rural, as well as Iteji. Yeah. You used to have some very nice, slightly smaller pieces, but absolutely beautiful material. We had tourmalines coming out of Nyimba, tourmalines from Lundazi, Chama area, from Luangwa as well. We can carry on talking about citrines from the area you're in. We're in citrine in Mukushi, in Mumbwa, in Northwestern Province. There's gems all over this country.
Yeah.
But lately we're not seeing a lot of gemstones. Why do you think that is?
I think it's lack of capital, because what it is that I remember 3 years ago, I hired a bulldozer from National Service. It stayed at my mine for 1 month. I spent about $90,000. How much did I get? $6,000.
Of production?
Yes.
It's a very risky business you and I are in.
It is. So
there are no guarantees in the gemstone mining.
There isn't.
So why are you still in it?
No, because I cannot do without Gemstone. That is something that I've come, I've mastered this business, and all my life I've spent in this business. So it's quite difficult for me to change.
Well, in one word, if you could summarize what you see the future of the Zambian gemstone and jewelry industry is, if you could describe it in one word, what would that word be?
The future of gemstone industry in Zambia, I can guarantee you, it's very, very, very bright.
Bright is the word. It's a
depends.
very good word to use, especially when
Yes.
you're talking about gemstones.
It depends how the policymaker, they'll put things in place.
Well, hopefully they're listening to this and they will agree with you and I that this industry has the potential to become an engine for economic growth for Zambia, and that it needs positive support and reinforcement and encouragement as befitting a sector of the industry that has potential to change our national economy.
Absolutely.
Joe, I thank you very much for your time today. I am particularly grateful for all your experience and insightful comments on the growth of this industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Laj. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's incredible when you start widening your perspective and understanding a certain sector and industry. I've spoken to yourself and Raj a lot, but when Raj and Mr. Kabuse had the conversation around the industry, that was just mind-blowing. He's been in the industry, Mr. Kabuse, for ages now and has seen everything through the trenches, successes, failures. It was so insightful, and I just want to hear more and see more and understand what we can do to really, really take this forward. So I'm really excited about that. But right now it's time for gift giving.
That's right.
Yeah?
Let's bring
Are you ready
on
to go and meet Mukwandi?
Mukwandi. Let's go.
Yeah?
Yes.
And now join us for the guest segment.
Hi, Mukwandi. Hi, Rashmi. What are you hanging out by the door for? Welcome to Jewel of Africa.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you for having me here.
Well, we're doing a podcast on the awareness of Zambian gemstones.
I heard about that. So amazing.
Thank you. Zambia has more gemstones than any other country that have been discovered, says Rashmi, who could be a little biased, but I think it's kind of true.
I'm biased too.
Oh, good. Zambia. But I wanted you to have a special piece of Zambia. I call it the best piece of Zambia, but I think each and every one of our gemstones are special. And something that will reflect your personality and your position in society as an influencer.
Thank you, Rashmi. I'm grateful, and I'm looking forward to wearing it and going out there and
Wait till you
telling
see
this
it.
amazing experience.
Wait till you see the piece. Oh, it's down here.
Oh, this is stunning.
So these are special emerald earrings, and they will look beautiful on your face and your ears. I actually want you to try them on at some point right now. Even though you're wearing pearls, they'll still go with them. Even though the pearls are not Zambian. This is a very Zambian piece, cut and
Well, I'm
polished.
Zambian, so that's a good thing.
Cut and polished by Zambians.
Thank you so very much. This is amazing, and looking forward to actually wearing them and sharing this amazing experience.
Thank
They're
you.
gorgeous, and they're a whole Zambian thing. We
That's
should be proud Zambians, and I'll wear them proudly.
And tell everybody where
I
they're
will
from.
tell everybody where they're
All right,
from.
because you're our ambassador.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rashmi. I
Welcome.
appreciate that.
Thank you for coming. Would you like to try them on?
Yes.
All right, go for it. I should have a mirror, but there's plenty mirrors around here.
Yes, I'll see myself. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
I'm sorted. I can even feel the weight of them.
Excellent.
So beautiful.
And they do sparkle out far.
They do. I must say, Rashmi, such a beautiful narrative that you're taking Zambia out there. They say Zambia Kuchalo.
Yes,
You're part of that.
That was recent. I had to ask what it meant, but now I know what it means.
Now that you know,
I hope you never take them off, well, except for when you're getting ready. But when you wear them every single day, you'll tell everybody these are my Zambian emeralds.
I will.
Wherever you go in the world.
I will do so, and I'll share.
See yourself in the mirror.
I can see myself in the mirror.
Great.
And I'm loving them.
For now, this is your special piece that I'd like you to speak about. Tell the whole world where it's from, where it's made. And
I'll start with Zanako, the team.
Yes.
I'll make sure that wherever I go, I'm sharing this.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. We'll see you. Thanks. I don't want to take much of your time.
So how did it go with Mkwandi?
Oh, she loved them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think she's going to rock them. I think she'll
so
speak
too.
widely about Zambian manufacturing skills as well as Zambian emeralds.
And they were absolutely exquisite.
Thank you.
Very, very gorgeous.
Thank you.
I think a treasured gift for sure. Well, it seems we've come to the end. That wraps up our first episode.
Our first
That was easy.
episode. All right, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. For somebody who does podcasts, that was easy. For somebody who doesn't, I have to
did good.
rethink. I mean, you have to stop me every time I go off on a tangent talking
No,
about
it's good.
different
It's
gemstones.
conversation.
Focus on emeralds and focus on.
No, but I think it was important for this episode because we were giving sort of like an overview of the gemstone industry,
Right.
you know, what we want to talk about, what we want to get into, why we wanted to do it. I think in the next episode, we'll go a little deeper, right?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about the structure of gemstones and the different segments will be the history of gems and where we want to take it, the marketing of gems. Yes, and so forth. Yeah.
And the many other, you know, gemstones that are there.
Yes.
I mean, this is intended for audio, and it will be as well on YouTube, so people can view it. But we also want to get feedback from people as well.
Yes, let us know what you think.
Based on
I
the
hope everybody enjoys this podcast and learns a lot. Please do send us any comments, any questions, and I'll be very happy to elaborate on
Okay.
on the gemstone scene.
Yeah. So this has been the Zambian Jewels Podcast.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. The Zambian Jewels Podcast was made possible by Jewel of Africa and was produced by Ku-Atenga Media. Follow, subscribe, like, and comment on our socials for more information.